Valentine's Day. I've always thought we should just get rid of it and add another Halloween in its stead. However, we're stuck with it. It's February, and you clicked on this video. So here are some Valentine's horror stories for you to sink your teeth into. Let's dig right in.
Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. Do you know where Valentine's Day cards come from? The origins are a little less wholesome than most would have you believe. The original Valentines exchanged were children. If a couple was tired of a misbehaving son or daughter, they would exchange them with another family's son or daughter. Seen in this photo is the homecoming of one such Valentine. Note the traditional Valentine's Day garb worn by the parents. On the night of February 14th, the parents and the children would leave their homes and walk around the neighborhood until they found another couple wearing the accepted two-horned masks. The parents would switch children and inspect them. If both parties were happy, they would exchange Valentines and head home with a new child. If one or both parties were unsatisfied, they would hold out a card with a heart on it and exchange those instead. This is where Valentine's Day cards originated.
Every year there's a must-buy for Valentine's Day, and this year was a new box of chocolates. Valentine's Day draws out many different crowds, but every time it's the same. You get the forever alone people that fervently complain about being alone on the holiday, which ironically is a horribly unattractive trait, thus reinforcing that they will be alone for the holiday. You get the negative Nancy's, who are mad at the holiday for being so couple-enforced, seemingly ignoring the fact that you just spent time with a close friend or family. And don't get me started on the Valentine's Day is a hallmark holiday people that seem to think the commercialization automatically erases any sense of sincerity that can be achieved from the day. This is in contrast to the die-hard fanatics that want to go hard on everything for the holiday. And though I love her to pieces, sadly Megan, the girl I'm dating, falls into this category. Though we've both grown up since our younger puppy love days, where every day had to be special, she still loves to be spoiled on Valentine's Day. So, when a local advertisement made its rounds that this year's must-have was Heart of Chocolates, the most cliche-looking Valentine's chocolate bundle I'd ever seen, Megan had to have them. They were advertised to be the latest in chocolate innovation. The fillings were these small brown balls of flavour, touted to be the new truffle, but much more affordable. All the details were heavily pushed in all the local ads and posters plastered across our town. She more than hinted that this was what she wanted. And you know what? I was actually ecstatic about it. To me, chocolate was much more affordable than some limited edition jewellery that'll only be worn for a day, or a huge, overpriced bear that would very quickly merge into the pile of plushies she kept. Chocolate was usually seen as a cop-out gift, so the fact that she asked for it was a godsend to me, a sentiment that some of my other friends thought too. I happily promised to get her a box and told her we'd have a fun day together. The only problem was, my friends and I weren't the only ones to pick up on this great deal, and the queues ran around the block in most of the stores that stocked the chocolates. Every man and dog was getting them as an easy, affordable, yet thoughtful gift this year, so most stores immediately ran out of stock. Whoever ran this company's marketing department was damn good at their jobs. I ended up having to do a bit of research to try snag a box. It turned out the company behind these chocolates were a local pop-up company that seemingly opened overnight. This was their debut product, and timed it perfectly to cash in on Valentine's Day. Their PR was perfect. They created a perceived value similar to what made Apple such an appealing company. The status of the item had a feeling of exclusivity on top of the quality of the item itself. In the end of the day, it was just chocolate, just like an iPhone is just a phone. But the inherent notion of owning it held status value and bragging rights. Sadly, because they were just situated in our town, it meant I couldn't just skip over to the city and find a heavily stocked store. So my friends and I hopped in my car and we did the rounds to all the stores that received stock. We bounced around store to store, asking staff the question that must have burned their ears all week. We'd occasionally look out and find a store with one left. Because I was the driver, I let them have first dibs. Or rather, they twisted my arm into that deal. I guess they figured that if I got a box, I'd be less inclined to drive them around. Which was true, and I was their only ride. Eventually, everyone had one, except me. I dropped them all home, the irony being that they no longer wanted to stick around since they already had a box, and left me alone to search for one myself. I wasn't mad since we did this kind of stuff to each other all the time. I carried on bouncing around town, confident I could snag a last-minute batch. However, the later things dragged on, the more I realized it wasn't going to happen. My confidence got the better of me, and it bit me in the ass. I was devastated, because I knew she'd be devastated. It didn't help that, despite the company's best attempts to create enough stock for demand, they were still a new company, so stock was awfully limited. I tried calling the company and asking if they stocked any stores in other towns. I was ready to do a long run. However, they simply told me this run was exclusive to our town. I presumed they were using their home turf as a testing ground. Valentine's Day came, and I had to face the music. I gently let Megan know the truth, that I simply couldn't get the chocolates in time, though not from lack of trying. Her response took me by surprise. She wasn't mad or upset, though I optimistically hoped for that. But on top of that, she was happy. She had heard the effort I went through and was happy at the gesture more than the product. I was ecstatic. This motivated me to make the day I had planned even more special. We ended up having a great time. While we were having a nice dinner date, I checked my messages. On top of the group chat that often flared with messages, I got a private message from one of the friends I drove around. He told me he was the one who tipped off Megan about our escapades, and he and his girlfriend had a great idea. They would save half the box for me to give to Megan the day after. I politely asked them if they were sure, and he simply told me his girlfriend wanted it out of curiosity. I was happy with just trying some. So, with that in mind, I carried on with my date, and sneakily never told Megan, ready to surprise her. The morning after, Megan was more than happy. We had hit a high point in our relationship, which she admitted to me. This made me feel even more excited that I had a chance to add more to this emotional fire we were stoking. She left for work, and I timed it so my friend would drop off the box without Megan's knowledge. He came quickly and handed them to me, neatly rewrapped to make it more presentable. I asked him where his girlfriend was, and he told me she wasn't feeling too well. Knowing he'd be alone and wanting to make up for the favour, I asked if he wanted to hang out. He told me he was starting to come down with something as well, and opted to leave. I shot him a quip that I'd make up for this favour in the future, which he gave a grin and left. I hid them in plain sight, and played around for the rest of the day, waiting for Megan to get off. When she eventually did come home, a few hours later than she should have, she was exhausted. She was in a rut, saying over and over that she felt like she had to work 10 people's jobs. Apparently, there were a lot of no-shows that day, since a lot of people called in sick. There were rumours something was going around, but she just chalked it up to post-Valentine's Day hangovers. Her mood flipped when she saw it. I straight away wanted to tell her the truth, so I could explain why I never gave her the chocolates to her on Valentine's Day, and why the box was half empty. But before I could even get a word out, she screamed in disgust. She slammed it shut and put it back down in haste. This took me back. I didn't think it was that bad to have a hand-me-down. She scowled in anger towards me, shooting me with an accusatory look. I asked her what was wrong. Confusion plastered across my face. When she saw me confused, her anger devolved to a matching level of confusion. All she told me was to look inside, but to be careful. I slowly peeked inside and immediately slammed it shut. Some of the chocolates had small blemishes on top, and from each one were tiny brown beads gently wriggling themselves free from their cage. The easier ones to see were the chocolate shells that were cracked and had freed their wriggling prisoners. I didn't look for long, but that was enough to see they were small, chocolate-coloured little worms that were hidden within each bite-sized piece of chocolate. I didn't look for long, but that was enough to see they were small, chocolate-coloured little worms that were hidden within each bite-sized piece of chocolate. They looked infantile in nature. I was mortified. I confirmed what I saw, giving detail without thinking, causing Megan to run to the bathroom, a heaving sound accompanying her. I grabbed the nearest roll of tape and took to wrapping the box 1,000 times over. While mindlessly trying to secure the box, a thought came to my head, and I flicked on the TV. On every local channel, there were news reports doing big exposés on the Heart of Chocolate product and its company. There were calls of a town-wide emergency, and all authorities were on high alert. Though they were also reporting that the emergency services were woefully understaffed for the pandemic due to a large number of workers were also infected by the chocolates. When Megan returned, we sat there and watched everything unfold. The evening started with talks of quarantine and riots, and things progressed through the night to the borders of our town being shut off and a form of martial law trying to keep the peace. All the while, I was keeping an eye on social media. I saw updates that my friends fell victim to the illness, a lot of them either taken to the hospital or complaining at how long the emergency services were taking to get to them. It was pandemonium. Everyone was terrified for their safety. I held Megan close, but in my head, I didn't know if it was for her comfort or mine. The last thing we saw on TV was a shot of an interviewer in an ER room. He was showing the aftermath of the effects of the chocolate, doing a deep dive on the symptoms people were feeling. Phrases like intense stomach pains, nausea, uncontrollable vomiting, headaches scrolled past the screen. There were even weirder symptoms that were reported. Psychological ones, like hearing a constant wriggling, or even hearing strange voices. One person even stated it was the unmistakable voice of a deceased loved one. No one knew what to make of any of it. People were becoming delusional. And this was only if the victim could talk. Some were falling into a comatose state, barely responding to any stimulus. Suddenly, there was a scream from down the hall, followed by the cameraman letting out an audible gasp. This left the anchor confused, a look of annoyance at the unprofessional disruption from what should have been a silent cameraman. But that was because the cameraman could see what was coming, whereas the news anchor could not. Behind the anchor was a figure, slowly stumbling towards him. His neck was disturbingly bent back, his mouth open at an inhuman girth. From his throat was a large, wriggling mass, which when closer looked like the tip of a large worm. It looked extremely uncomfortable. However, the figure didn't seem bothered. The way he moved, it looked like he wasn't in any sort of control, acting like he was moving on some sort of unconscious instinct. I wasn't even sure if he could breathe. Before the anchor had the initiative to turn around, it was too late. The figure grabbed the anchor's hair with an ungodly strength and yanked his head back, forcing his mouth open. Before he could let out any scream, the writhing head of the worm bent down and vomited a mass of small, brown dots. Megan looked away, not knowing what was going on, but my mind instantly made the connection. The dots were reminiscent to the egg-like dots that were baked into the chocolates, the mystery unraveling far too late for me to do anything about. The shot cut after the camera swung back, indicating the cameraman's upper body was also yanked back. This left the screen on a high-pitched whine, and the visuals nothing but a TV colour test screen. No more broadcasts were shown after that. I told Megan to stay put and rushed into the garage to grab any and all hardware supplies I could carry. I boarded up all the windows and doors on the lower floor, just about having enough wood and nails to do so. I made sure we turned off all the lights and sealed the windows with fabric and tape. I emphasized many times over for her to never make a sound and to keep all lights off, no matter what. She was terrified, but compliant, taking my grave tone seriously. She thought of me as acting out of bravery, but I never let on that it was actually fueled by fear and also a hidden motivation. In the brief moment I looked out the garage window, I saw a glimpse of what was going on outside. I saw the fires of panic, people rushing around in fear. I saw people lying on the ground, passed out. Standing above them were figures with their heads impossibly snapped back, a writhing brown point wriggling in success. After seeing what happened to the anchor, it wasn't hard to figure out what happened to the unconscious people. My goal was to never let us see what was going on outside, and to keep whatever was outside from seeing us. I hear the tearing of helicopters above, and the chatter of military-sounding radios in the street. Occasionally, there's the clatter of gunfire but from the screams. I have no idea who's winning. All we can do is wait. Valentine's Day, 1998. I remember that day, when I asked you to be my Valentine. That special bond I felt was going on between us was increasing, and I wanted to take that to the next level. I remember the look on your face, the happiness and excitement of the day we spent together drained from your face, like water running down a plug hole. You said no. I loved you. You know I did. So why would you do this to me? Why? I remember when you walked away into the crowd of lovers. I sat on the bench, crying. I walked home on my own. No one was at home to comfort me after what you did. I remember walking up and looking at the patterns of the cuts from last night. The blood on the carpet was still there from last night. The writing on my bedroom walls was still there. Why? The writing said, all written in blood. I remember 2 weeks later, I saw you on the street with another man, much younger and better looking than me. The pain just grew and grew. Everything we had done together had just been thrown away by you. Every time we screwed, you told me that you loved me and me only. I remember when I walked down that alley and that gang of thugs mugged me and killed me. I died thinking of you as the knife plunged into my chest, ending my life with the pain in my heart as the knife dug deeper into me. I could feel the life slipping away. The sheer pain was excruciating. I remember at my funeral, my friends and family were there. My mother was crying. My father was comforting her. I looked around, but couldn't find you anywhere. When I died, it wasn't nice. All I could feel was searing pain through my body, as if I was on fire. The pain was excruciating, and I only escaped because I didn't feel complete. I felt I needed something more, and I knew what that was. Revenge. I don't know how I escaped, but it involved lots of pain. When I got back to Earth, I felt like going straight home to say hey to everyone and say I survived. Then I realized no one could see me. So I just decided to kill the thugs that took away my life. I could still move things, but I was invisible. It was great fun, and I enjoyed it so much. The first one I went for ended up face down on the ground with a cracked skull and no scalp. He never knew what hit him. I used the same knife he used to kill me to carve his pretty little eyes out of their sockets. By this time, the two other assholes had backed into a corner. I ripped the first one's fingers off with my teeth. After that, I cut his eyes out, holding them in the same hand as the others. I knew what I was going to use them for. I was going to make a necklace for you. With the second shuddering in pain on the floor as the third in tears, I felt the rush and became more violent. I cracked his jaw with the first uppercut and dislodged his head from the body, and dislodged his head from his body with the second. And as with the others, I cut his eyes out with the same knife, and kept the eyes and the knife for later use. I knew where I had to go next. I was going to his house, the one who took you from me. I was going to be less forgiving to him. When I first saw him, he knew something was wrong. He could sense me getting closer. I knocked him out with a single punch to the neck, taking out his airways and suffocating him until he collapsed. After that, I surgically cut a hole in his throat so he could breathe. I wanted this to last for as long as possible. He choked up blood and started to wake. On the verge of death, it appeared he could see me. He knew who I was. "But you were dead," he stuttered. He was so wrong. I cut his eyes out with him still screaming, then plunged the knife deep into his stomach, watching his intestines pour out onto the cold carpeted floor. At least I think it was cold. It was too drenched in blood for me to tell. I felt better after this, but still not complete. I was still missing something. It was you. I needed you. I would never be complete without you. So I set off for your house, whistling to myself along the way. I was happy for some reason. I knew nothing could stop me now as I drew closer. I felt happier and happier. You were surprised to see me. You cried, and I told you not to. You wouldn't stop, and I tied you up. I got angry. I shouted. I cut you. I put the necklace I made for you on, and you just screamed louder. I plunged the murder weapon that was used on me into your eye, and from then on, we were tied together in a permanent bond. No one would separate us. I was happy now. I could finally rest.
I hate Valentine's Day. It's my least favourite time of the year, aside from our annual family gatherings, which is just a nice way of saying drunken brawls among family. I'm 16, going on 17, and usually I would disregard any hope of having a Valentine. I wouldn't say I'm unattractive or unpleasant to be around. I'm more unnoticed than average. What girl wants to be with a straight-C student whose only achievement is being president of the movie club, when they can chase after steroid junkie football players and musicians with jeans tight in their own skin? That was until Kyle, football player and general dick, decided to transfer to a new school. You see, there's this one girl, Sabrina, who all the guys chase. There's just something about her soft pale skin, bottomless blue eyes and long black hair that no guy can resist, not even me. If she didn't have a boyfriend, rumours were floating around about who she did like. It was kind of like a lottery, one that only the before-mentioned kind of guys win, usually. Well, after Kyle, her current boyfriend, seemingly abandoned her for his new school, it was time for every guy to get his hopes up, and then shattered. Luckily, I stopped caring at this point. And that was until Sabrina's best friend came up to me with a piece of pink paper. She giggled and ran away. I looked at the paper. It smelled like girl's perfume. I unfolded it and started reading. To Pete, I've been seeing you around school a lot and you look like a really cool guy. Meet me by the bike path after school and we'll see if you're good Valentine material. Sabrina. There was a lipstick mark under her name. It took a second for my brain to process the information in this unexpected letter. But once it had, I couldn't help smiling like a moron in the middle of the hall. If people didn't think I was weird before, they do now. Nevertheless, I was going on a date with Sabrina. The girl boys far better than me had attempted to woo and failed had just asked me to be her Valentine. I was just hoping that it wasn't some sort of prank. When the 3 o'clock bell rang, I could feel my chest tighten. I scooped my papers and books into my bag and dashed out the door. I sprinted through the winter breeze before stopping abruptly at the entrance to the bike trail, sweating and panting. There was no one here. I was hoping she was just late and that she hadn't stood me up, before I heard her soft voice from the brush behind me, luring me into the wooded area of the trail. Silence. I looked from tree to tree, bush to bush, and couldn't see her anywhere. I was about to leave for home and save myself any more embarrassment, before something blunt smashed me on the back of the head, and everything went blurry and dark. I awoke with a metallic smell burning my nostrils and a strong ringing in my ears. As I went to rub my head, I realised my hands were above me, bound to some sort of hook dangling from a chain. As my mind began to process what was happening, panic set in. I struggled and thrashed on my chain, but to no avail. I spun to the left, to be face to face with Kyle. His eyes were wide and wild, and his jaw looked as though it was stretched until dislocated. As my eyes strained to look down further, I came to a shocking realization. There was no body below him. I was looking at Kyle's severed head that was impaled on a similar hook to mine. They were meat hooks. I thrashed and screamed, trying with all my might to free myself. Just then, I heard the door at the top of the stairs fly open, and a dim bulb spring to life. As the room was illuminated crudely, I could see the real horror I was now a part of. Shelves upon shelves of jars containing organs and small limbs, a large steel table stained a brownish red, with what looked like leather restraints. Hooks surrounded the perimeter of the room, some clean and unoccupied, and some covered in what's left of the people before me. The wooden stairs creaked as my capturer slowly descended. They were enveloped in darkness. I screamed at them to let me go. Silence. They stepped forward, and I was staring into bottomless blue eyes. Sabrina stood there, blood-soaked mouth twisted into a smile. Clutching a butcher's knife, she giggled and whispered, "A girl has to eat," before backing into the darkness once more and killing the lights. I'll say it again. I hate Valentine's Day.